Okay. That should work. Hopefully. We have to go back and do it again. What's today's date? Oh my god, am I live twice? That's kind of wild. Can we delete this one? Yeah, let's delete this one. We'll refresh. Go back to this. Cool, there we go. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to do before I started streaming. First, let me mute myself. There we go. One of the first things I wanted to do before to start the stream is I wanted to test something out. So I have a Roland Aerophone Pro. It is a electronic wind instrument. If I plug this in, so I have it such that if I turn that off, turn that on. So this is a wind instrument, and I wanted to see if I could like put it through my Okay, you hear Okay, I'm hearing a bit of a whine through my I might have to use like a cable. Oh wow, that is actually like really let's see. Because if I do a line in, right? Let's see how this works. Okay. The problem with that is that it's not going through all the way. But that might be because I what you call it? That the output isn't loud. So let's give that a shot. Give me 1 second. So speaker volume, output volume I have it at 6. What if we increase that to like 10? How does that work now? You hear me clicking on the thing on the mic. That's actually kind of funny. So yeah, I think the way to go was to do was to just create the line level, even though it still sounds so like it sounds so quiet. No, it doesn't. It doesn't sound quiet. It sounds it sounds at the same level as me. So what I want to do is I want to actually bring this down. Not too much, just to this level. And then we bring that up to some. No, we don't want the echo too. Sorry, I had to mute my speakers. So we're gonna bring. This is good. Okay, so we have this because I'm look again. I want to look at the levels. And so with my microphone, it's I'm hitting about 10 dB normally, or actually more like 15 depending on how I speak. I'm very dynamic with my vocal or with my voice, so there's never going to be an instance where I can like have a consistent, and maybe that's something I have to sort of practice, but I see the levels. That's what I'm shooting for. So if I play this and I see the same levels, then I know that that is the same, that's equivalent. So let's see. It's pretty funny. It's really, really low. It's so weird hearing the feedback. What I want to also do is I'm actually going to crank this to where my mic level is, because oops, I don't want to mute it. No mute. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, because like when I'm playing my instrument, I'm not talking, so I don't want to. It should be the same. It should be the same volume then. So let's try this, and then I can also mute my microphone so that you don't hear me clacking. So let's give that a shot. I actually changed my the line level, and because the issue I was having was and I'm gonna go through the other other sound banks that were kind of like weird, uh like classic Saul, right? That by changing the input, so it went from line level to instrument, because I have a quarter cable here, but I hear a lot of static on my end. So maybe if I actually just lower the gain, let's see. Because if I increase it to 10, right? Okay, I think that's fine. I mean, it is and it isn't, because uh I hear I hear some feedback through the cable. So if I take it out like this, I don't hear anything, obviously. And then when I stick it in, I get so much. It might be the cable itself. It might be just be a bad cable, or the fact that like there's just so much other interference. It's very subtle. It's very subtle, at least to me, to my headphones. But I do hear it, and it's really annoying. So that's 5. But that like makes sense. So yeah, I think it's just a either. Oh no, that's this. Yeah, it's just like a hum. Yeah, damn. Oh wow, it's actually when I turn on the menu, I get more of it. I do like the Jupiter though. Whew. All right. That's enough playing for today. I'm happy that it works. But I might have to get something. There's like a special there's a special doohickey device that will remove a lot of that ground noise. It's like I think it's called like a ground loop isolator. I have one, but I have one for 3.5 and not quarter inch. Okay. Whew. I'm happy that it sort of works. It's I'm hoping again. I'm using the streaming to sort of not hold me accountable per se, but more so to what's the way it helps bring a little bit of extra pressure to doing things that I usually have a hard time doing. So I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, like watch me do chores or laundry or maybe walk my dogs, but excuse me. But it does like allow me to sort of it helps me do things. So I don't know how long this stream is gonna be. I it's kind of gloomy out, so I'm excited for it because I have a book it's a horror book. It's called what's it called? It's called The Musings of He. It's apparently akin to House of Leaves, and I loved House of Leaves. So I want it to be like I want it to have the right environment for reading it though. And so I wanted something like rainy, gloomy. So it's supposed to rain like today, tomorrow, and then the next couple days. So I have a good like list to choose from when it comes to like starting to read it. But it's not that big of a book. It's looks like it's about half the size of House of Leaves. So I don't know. I'm excited. It brings me like I have a hard time reading books, watching movies, watching videos and stuff like that because like my brain gets so flooded with emotions and ideas that sometimes it gets very overwhelming. And so I have to be very careful with how I digest things. But it's like like that's supposed to be normal, right? You're supposed to when you ingest like media, or when you read, when you watch, when you listen, uh, it's supposed to sort of inspire you, right? And so I don't think it's necessary that, or I don't think it's the case that doing like reading something just makes me overwhelmed. It's just that I have a hard time like when I have an idea, I don't do anything with it. And not every idea needs to be acted on, but I some of these I'm like, "Oh, it would be really good if I just had the capabilities to do it." Uh the latest thing I was inspired by was actually this thing called see if I can find it. It was a game. It's a cave splunking game, but it's like it reminds me a bit of like of Noita mixed with Ted the Caver, and so there's like and also like White Knuckle. There's like I don't know. There's like a there's like this dark. Let me just find the game. How about that? Let me just find the video. It was just on my radar. Uh, looks like it's called Casualties Unknown. I think that's the. Yeah, I think so. Okay, I think that's it. Anyway, so yeah, it's this really cool, like atmospheric, realistically brutal and dark, in more ways than one, cave exploration thing. And I get the goal is to reach the bottom and then escape. And I was like, wow, like that's like another building block for like something that I'm trying to create as well. And I say create, but like we're ideating right now. Like it's all ideation. There's nothing actually concrete that's coming out of it. But I guess that's like you never know when creating, right? There's never a template that you can really follow, right? Like how long does it take to ideate on something before you sort of go with it? Or, is it okay to be ideating on things for so long? Or is there something else at play here? And um, so it gives me an idea for a game. Well, first it was a world building exercise, and then I was like, well, how do I want to best express this world I'm trying to create? And I was like, oh, I think a start would be a video game, and I really like the concept. So uh, I don't mind saying it out loud. Like one, if somebody watches this, and then if somebody watches this and then is able to have the skills or capital necessary to make this a thing, then you like, I mean, the idea goes farther when it's actually, created or acted on rather than just, staying in my head and just having me sort of wait until I get the right inspiration to finally like move. Um, but I like this concept where, so I was thinking of like something like a blood plague, but not in a sort of traditional sense. Like we see vampires, right? We see vampires all the time. It's like, okay, what makes up the vampire? Removing the sort of aristocratic components of it, because I mean, in this world, I'm going to have both aristocratic and sort of commoner infected, right? Because that's the other thing too. Like, it's not like this is a plague. It's a blood plague. It's a contagion, right? And it's sort of a combination of a lot of different things, even though blood is the medium at which this contagion flows. And, I use blood more so as like this sort of essence of life. And so like blood is more than just a transportation of nutrients, but also it's it's a person's identity. I think that's the where I'm trying to go with this. And so when you get infected by this, right? You are still yourself, like you still have this blood inside of you, right? But it's now this necessity to sort of subsist on this identity, right? And it sounds crazy, but it's hear me out. So this blood plague, it comes out of nowhere, right? Like we enter in this world sort of in the middle of this happening, right? The blood plague is happening. People have been living with it for generations. It's just a part. It's an integral part of life and culture, right? So what's so bad about it? Well, the blood plague is in 4 stages, and it's a little bit different than a traditional sort of vampire story, right? So in some regards, right, the the traditional vampire story is you have a vampire who's newly infected, right? They go completely feral if they don't have blood. And then when they get blood, they sort of restore it, right? And then at any point, it's sort of like a zombie plague where, like, if a vampire bites you, then you become subservient of the vampire. Again, like, I want to remove the capitalistic, aristocratic notions of, like, of vampirism where, like, if a vampire bites you, it's kind of like how your boss has to use your labor in order to keep them alive. Like if you look at it like a CEO of a company, like there's a reason why vampires, at least in the original time, are like associated with aristocracy and hierarchy, right? Is because uh, they need your blood in order to satisfy themselves. They don't have to do anything, but they're still very powerful and they hold influence and all these different things. But at the end of the day, they need your blood to live. And so there's that dichotomy, that sort of relationship between the aristocracy and the common. Um, but in this case, the plague is everywhere, right? I want to say like maybe the ratio would probably be like 2/3 non-infected to 1/3 infected. And so there's a social. I want to make it sort of a social and cultural element where. So anyway, let's go to the. It'll make more sense when I talk about the stages. So there's stages of the plague, right? The plague is it's a parasite. It is a hijacking of one's identity, of one's blood, right? Where it's no longer about the self, to keep the existence going. It's now been that sense of identity and that sense of purpose has been hijacked by this parasite, this blood plague, right? And it's a contagion, so it's not like it's a central organism. It's just a sort of, again, a contagion that just takes over the purpose of the body, right? Now the purpose of the body is to consume blood. However, this isn't a mindless abomination, at least not yet. The first stage is a sated infected, right? There is no difference except with the blood plague. There is no discernible difference except for the existence of the contagion that separates a person from an infected person, right? They are sentient, they have their personality, they have their identity still, right? They for all intents and purposes, they are normal people, right? However, they have to always be cognizant of, making sure that they have blood. And what's great about this is they don't need human blood. They can use any blood, because that is the nutrient medium that this contagion requires in order to be sated. And so, which brings up a lot of interesting concepts, right? It's like it seems the plague seems trivial now, that you can just, if you, all you have to do is, let's say, if I want to take this in the place of like kind of medieval times, I want to say, not as much technology, maybe just getting into rifling and stuff like that. But a lot more focusing on melee and sword stuff, just because there's an intimacy there that I think is necessary to really showcase how horrible this plague is. But yeah, for all intents and purposes, right? If you're infected, all you have to do is have a glass of whatever blood with your meal, right? And it's like, well, why do you make the blood plague so passive? Well, it's because because the intervention of people is what makes this blood plague so horrible, right? For something that is so simplistically controllable, it is surprising that in this world that there are still threats that loom. Not because there is a scarcity, but because there is a will to control, right? And a lot of it's the ability to control that scarcity and then hold power. Why would you want to do that? Let's go to the second phase. The second phase is a hungry infected, right? Also, case in point, or not case in point, an aside real quick. You cannot spread the blood plague until I think the third or fourth phase. So like if a sated person, if a sated infected bites you, you're fine. You don't transfer the blood plague because it's not necessary. Again, this is a contagion that wants to survive. And so if it's in a body that is constantly being fed blood, it doesn't need to leave. It doesn't need to get out. And so a person who's infected can bite you in the first and second stage and not transfer the infection because there's no reason for the contagion to escape the body, right? And to transfer. And so like that's what's so cool about this is that usually viruses or contagions, they seek to multiply. They're just this mindless sort of there's this mindless entity whose sole focus is to just spread and multiply. And this one though, there's a little bit, I don't want to say like there's a homeostasis that happens, right? And it's almost symbiotic in that sense, right? And so let's get to the second stage. The second stage is a hungry infected. Again, the plague doesn't spread with bite at this case. It's just a binary to the one that's sated, right? So if a person who's infected doesn't have goes for a bit without feeding, right, and the time may vary. It depends on like how it's a balance thing, I guess. If they're not if they can't find any blood, then the contagion starts to get concerned. And so it starts to buff its body, essentially. What does that mean? Well, it makes the person stronger. It makes the person faster. It makes the person more focused on making sure that they're fed. And therefore, the contagion is willing to give the host specific abilities to make it easier to get blood. So like if let's say a person's out in the wild and they haven't had any blood in a while, it would make sense for the contagion to adapt them with super speed, with strength, with reflexes, with better perception so that it can find food to hunt, because the state of its body right now is not satisfied or not capable to hunt right now, so it has to give you enhancements. But it's not desperate yet. I think that the big thing is, and the horror of all this is the desperation that happens in stage 3 and 4, right? Stage 3 is a starved vampire. Or I don't want to say vampire, starved infected, right? And this is where things get a little nutty. So this is where the infection can spread from one to another, right? But it's I want to say it's like 50% likely, right? There's a hesitation that goes on here. The contagion is now deciding if it's better to leave the body than it is to stay in the body, right? But it's still going to give them these mutations, but the mutations are less enhancements and more vestigial. They're extra arms, extra eyes, maybe the possibility of sprouting wings, right? And the focus now is completely on the idea of getting blood. And so, uh, but the thing is that like, so, if they get blood, they will revert. So what's cool about stages 1, 2, and 3 is that 3 is this sort of, this intersection between the ability to be sated, right? Because again, we want to reach this sort of homeostasis. This contagion is still just trying to survive, right? And so it's starting to get desperate, and it's starting to just kind of throw things at the wall and see what sticks. But if it gets what it needs, it will revert the person back to their, I guess, for lack of a better term, sanity. But meanwhile, while that's happening, the person is solely focused on finding blood. So we're approaching sort of like almost zombie territory where that's all they're thinking about. They still have all of their mental acuities, right? But the contagion's like, all right, you're not fulfilling your end of the bargain, right? As if it was a bargain. No, it was forced. It's a contagion. They were infected. But according to the contagion's like, okay, we're gonna take the wheel. We're gonna find us some blood. You're not doing this right now. And so yeah, there's the possibility that, the infection could jump, right? If spread or bitten or things like that. But if they get the blood, then they become sated again and they're fine, right? But we see these mutations. And then we get to the 4th phase. And the 4th phase is something that I am particularly proud of, because, and I don't know if this has ever been done. It might. Who cares, right? So when I watch vampire movies, right, or when I watch things with vampires in them, there was a point where it seems that blood is sort of the energy meter or the life force of a vampire. And so if you starve a vampire of blood, they get weaker, right? I decided, what if instead they got stronger, right? So the 4th phase of this blood plague is known as the abomination phase, or the turn. Right? I'll call it something better, but for now I'm going to call it the turn. At this point, in stage 4, the body has gone so long without blood that the contagion believes that it is, it is impossible to get it, right? And it sort of goes berserk, and so the person completely loses their senses. The contagion consumes its person from the inside out, right? And it starts going into this chain reaction of you can actually see the desperation in these mutations, right? We're talking just extreme mitosis, right? Cells just regenerating and multiplying. It's almost like tumorous at this point, where there's a turn that happens, and the person isn't a person anymore. They're a monster. There is no going back after this phase is hit, right? The transfer is 100%. Actually, transfer is 0. I forgot. I sorry. You cannot be infected by somebody who is in stage 4. That was the thing. You cannot be infected because the contagion is no longer in a propagation mode. It's in a survival, cornered, not even to survive, but to sort of I don't know. There's this sort of mutation that sort of says, or this contagion's like, okay, we're taking the world down with us, sort of. And it causes the body to sort of go into this supernova of mutations and tumors and extra, again, vestigial limbs. Like, it's monstrous. And depending on each individual person, that turn is different. And this is where the creativity can really get flowing, because one person's turn could be a monster with like 7 wings, and or another one can be just a giant blob with like 70 tentacles, right? Or someone or there's another person that continuously consumes everything, but it doesn't, it just disintegrates it, right? It just destroys it entirely, right? It however you decide to make these monsters, you can literally go hambo, because it's the contagion is starting to consume the body as fuel to sort of just destroy things. It loses any sort of control, and it's just an animal. It lashes out, right? It's complete destruction incarnate. And there's no going back, and there's no turning, because the contagion no longer wants to survive anymore. It's done, right? It knows it's about to die, and so it goes berserk, and it takes the person down with it, right? And so there's a really cool interaction or dichotomy here, because if you're and this is that's the world building element of it, because I think there's a really fascinating amount of stories that can happen when, like, let's say if you have a ruling class of elites that are infected, right? And they feel that, and they keep themselves in a certain state of, or a certain phase of the hunger to prevent turning, but you have all these like powers and all these abilities and things like that, like a sort of a symbiosis. Or you can go the opposite way, and you can have a town completely enslave its infected population and uses them for like hard manual labor, because if you keep them starved of enough blood, you can create a really powerful workforce, and then also use that blood as leverage so that they are constantly at their peak performance and also subservient, right? That's another culture can do that, or a culture can be like elites, or you can have a culture that is in perfect symbiosis, that once a month, all the town's non-infected line up and do like a blood donation so that their infected brethren can still, be themselves, right? You'll have people marrying infected, having kids with infected, right? And then I don't even know how the plague works hereditarily, but I haven't really visited that. But that's a cool, that's a cool concept to sort of explore, right? And so you have all these political and strategic elements of it, right? You can have one where there's like a barbaric tribe of infected that in order to, and that's like a survival of the fittest thing. So they in order for like to enjoy these blood sports, they put people at like almost at turning so that they could be fought, or they can earn their spot, or delving into dungeons where an exile infected is trying to survive as best as they can, and they do until some hunting, like over hunting, has destroyed a lot of the population, and now this person who's been exiled or homeless has turned and now has become a really big fucking problem, right? Like, there's so many avenues, but this is the one I wanted to go with. All right. So if I end up making this game, right, I'm going to say right now, this is a spoiler, right? This is a spoiler for the game. And I really emphasize this because I think this is a really good plot twist that I don't think has been done in gaming yet. And so I really emphasize that if you want to hear this, right, it's going to ruin this game that I might make, right? Or if you want to use it, use it. I do not own this kind of plot twist, but I've never seen it done before in the myriad of games that I've played. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but I'm saying that I've never come across it. I've never come across it, right? So let's say you're in a environment like Noita, right? Actually, better yet, let's paint the picture of this game that I would like to make, but I just don't have the skill set right now to do so. You play as a prisoner who's been captured in this world and is being taken to a place that holds prisoners. You cannot see anything. You can only hear things. There is a bag over your head. All of a sudden, the cart that you're riding in on stops. You feel hands picking you up and then dropping you in a hole. And then before the bag, before you're able to sort of get any bearings of your surroundings, you hear something slide over, thunk, and then click. The sounds of a grate being pulled over or closed and locked. Your hands are still bound, your feet are bound, and you have a bag over your head, but being able, with some gusto and some wriggling, you're able to at least shake the bag off your head. Now you're in an environment. It's dark, it's dirty, it's damp, it's a cave. And you're hungry. You're not infected, though. You're not infected. We don't know about this infection yet, right? We don't know about this infection. But you're in this damp cave. You crawl over to a sharp rock and you cut your bindings. You're now free. Using the knowledge that you just have, or using the resources that you have, you take that sharp rock and you craft a spear or a knife or whatever, right? You realize that this cave that you're in is an open world, right? It's an environment in of itself. I'm thinking a side scroller. I really liked that game. I really liked how that game portrayed the atmosphere and the claustrophobia of it. So I really liked that concept. But I also like Starbound and Terraria. So I like this idea of having this sort of horror atmosphere being a crafting thing, right? But also I like the idea of Rain World, having this organic environment first and having the character drop in. And so we make ourselves sort of a survival horror, like a true survival horror. Not this, not like this, oh, I have to manage my ammo and my food and or my healing and things like that. Like that's the traditional survival horror. This is, you need to build a shelter. You need to stay dry. You need to, there's a day-night cycle, but it's not a traditional day-night cycle because you're in a cave, but it seems like the flora around you seem to emit this sort of bioluminescent glow during periods of the time, right? And there's a whole ecosystem down here, right? The people above only see this as a dungeon to drop people in, but after some excavating and exploring, so you build a stone pick and you start clacking into areas and you find that you're opening different caverns and rooms and things like that, and you're actually seeing or you're seeing entrances of other prisoners who've tried to make their way. So it's not like you're starting from square one, but you see like some skeletons and things like that. It all seems pretty, the hook right now is to just survive, to get a bearing of your surroundings and to understand what is going on around you. So you notice your first animal, right? It's not a rat per se, but it's something between like a bunny and a possum, that's crawling around, and you see it eating a lot of these flora, right? Maybe some mushrooms, and you're hungry, right? You can't subsist off of just mushrooms, so you go and you kill it, right? It dies. It's a normal creature. You cook it in your fire, take it back to you take it back to your shelter, you cook it, and you eat it. Delicious, right? Nothing bad happens. Truly, nothing bad happens. And so you start to survive. You start to figure things out. You start to explore. And so as you explore, we come across the first antagonist of the game, right? It's just an animal. It's just a predator, right? You're in its territory. It's a pretty difficult antagonist, right? But you craft yourself a spear, maybe some armor using some of the chitin of the things that you've killed, or something like that, and you create sort of traps, and you create like a blockade to make sure that it doesn't come to you, right? And for now you're able to live in sort of you're able to live alongside it, right? It's hunting other things. Again, this is an environment. It's not focused on you unless there's nothing else around, right? But as long as you don't cross it, it's not going to cross you. But then you find that food is starting to get scarce because the creatures don't respawn. There's a finite amount of creatures in this area. They don't respawn. And so you realize that maybe they do respawn, but maybe they respawn at like no, I like the idea of them not respawning because there's a mechanic, there's a thing that I want to do near the twist, right? So you start seeing that food has become scarce, and you switch as much as you can to farming. Again, I like this idea of like this oxygen not included concept where everything is finite and time is running out. You can only stay in the environment so long. All you got to do is stabilize. You're not living here, you're just surviving here so you can find a way to escape. So eventually you find that food is becoming scarce in the area. And you're trying your best to farm, but it's only a temporary measure. The crops don't grow enough to truly be sustainable unless you really focus on it. But the rest of the ecosystem is living on without you. That predator is killing things to eat. You feel the earth shake. There's earthquakes, apparently, right? Opening up new caverns. You have to reinforce your roof so that if there's anything above you, it doesn't accidentally shake and fall on top of you, right? And then you finally realize, okay, it's either going to be this creature or me, right? And before, as you're walking, the only thing you've ever seen of this creature are its eyes, right? These, well, I don't know. Should they be red? Should they be blue? Should they be green? Should they be white? Right? But all you see are these eyes just moving and a growl. You haven't seen the body of the creature yet, right? But then you decide to be brave, right? And this is where we're getting into Subnautica territory, right? You've seen the creature in the distance. The Leviathan is, well, this isn't a Leviathan. I would say this is more akin to like a mountain lion. You know, that's the size and aggressiveness I sort of want to go with. But like, it's the same concept. You only see traces of it, you know, not only in the foreground, but also the background, right? And I think we have to play around with the background if we're doing a 2D game, right? There's things happening in the background that are, yet you can't reach. They're in the distance, but you see the silhouettes happening. And so we see Subnautica, right? We see some inspirations of Subnautica, where you see the Leviathan in the cloudy murkiness of the distant ocean, and you only get traces of it. You don't really know what it truly looks like or how aggressive it gets, but you know that eventually you're going to have to face it. And so you do your best to learn about everything. You've started synthesizing poisons and paralysis toxins. You've started to find remedies. You've started to learn more about the different flora and what they do. You've found geysers. You've found, and this is the thing I'm taking from the other game, right? Is you find geysers of steam, of toxic gas or whatever, right? Maybe not the geysers. I don't know. That might be a little too much. That might be some bloat. But you get what I'm saying, right? You've learned to sort of survive in the wilderness, and you've built up in your mind an appropriate arsenal to face this thing, right? And so you face it, and it's intense, it's scary, and then you kill it. And you haul its body back to your base, and you cook it and you eat it, right? You are now one of the dominant predators. There's going to be more. You know, again, this is an ecosystem, but you killed this thing. You feel powerful, and you haven't come across anything yet that's in these depths that has been, you know, a problem for you. The thing that you thought was going to be an issue, and you didn't come out unscathed. You were injured. You know, you got cut up. You have to treat those wounds before they become infected. You got to set maybe your shoulder. but you come out on top. So a couple other days go by and you start hunting more creatures and you start foraging more food, and you come across a couple of different biomes. Maybe there needs to be an incentivization as to to get those biomes. I guess it's really like on the dependency of like how much you want to thrive. But I'll stop skirting around the true plot twist, right? And this is what I'm really excited about. This is the thing I was like, this is the spoiler now. If you delve deep enough, you notice that the rock no longer becomes rock, but it's metal. You're like, what the hell? Why do I hear metal on my shovel? Why do I hear metal against my shovel? And you start uncovering the dirt, and you see metal, a metal ceiling or a metal wall. Obviously, you don't have the tools. Your pick isn't going to break that, right? So maybe you have to go into another biome to get something stronger. But you do. And you open up that wall and you get a flood of just white light. Almost sterile. You've come across a laboratory. Right. Now this is where it kind of gets a little funky, because if we're setting this more into like, not medieval times per se, but like kind of Game of Thronesy sort of thing, then it wouldn't be a white lab, right? Maybe it's just a more sterile, not sterile. Maybe it's a cleaner sort of like smooth granite with like apothecary supplies. Doesn't matter. You've come across a laboratory and you start finding parchment, notes, studies, tests. This is where you first learn about it. The plague, the blood plague. And you read the first note and you say like, oh, test subject has been given X amount of blood, seems stable. I had a conversation with the subject. We talked about this. We talked about this. They told me about their life, right? Who they were before, what the job they have. I don't know. Then the next page, you're still exploring this laboratory. You get another piece of paper and you see, another test of the same subject. Subject is, we've decided to only feed blood to the person every other day. They started when they haven't been fed, they've been complaining about being hungry or thirsty despite being fed the normal amount of food every day. Even though their diet hasn't changed, the blood intake has, and yet they've been feeling hungrier and thirstier. Then you also see that they have to reinforce the cell, because it turns out that the subject started to gain strength and was able to almost bend the iron bars, so they had to be reinforced. You still haven't found the holding cell for this thing yet, though. And so you continue, searching the laboratory, and you find some more notes, and you say, well, third trial. Ended up there was a problem with the import of blood, right? It's not even like it was another study or another test, let's say. It was, hey, due to a recent cave-in, right? The ranch, or like the ranchings, or the area in which they were cultivating animals to be bled out. Oh shoot, my wife's calling me. 1 second. I'm going to mute and then I will continue my story. Okay, I'm going to end the stream because it's going to be a long conversation. All right. Until next time. I'll continue it later.